Hey there, fellow adventurers, get ready to witness an epic collision of worlds like you've never seen before. What if our beloved One Piece characters transformed into fierce and majestic Pokémon? It's time to set sail on an extraordinary voyage into the uncharted waters of imagination, where the Straw Hat Pirates are now the Pokémon themselves. Brace yourselves for an adventure of a lifetime as we explore the wild and wacky One Piece Pokémon Fusion universe. Prepare for a tidal wave of excitement because this crossover is going to blow your mind. Let's embark on this thrilling journey together. Special thanks to Kyle D. Mega for inspiring today's video concept. You can find more of his amazing ideas and creations on TikTok. We're taking his awesome One Piece characters as Pokemon idea and are going to dive even deeper into the exciting crossover universe. First, we're going to take a look at Ace. You have already seen him on the thumbnail. And we already see something that I might argue that Ace would actually be a fire fighting type and not just a pure fire type. Because the fire part is obviously from his Devil Fruit, but Ace is also a fighter. He was also capable of fighting against other people with just his fists. It's just that he somehow became more over-reliant on his Devil Fruit as time progressed in the story. So firefighting or pure fire both make sense, and now we come to his ability. The first potential ability for Ace would be Flame Body. Flame Body is an ability that a lot of fire types have. And it basically works that if somebody comes into contact with his body, they have like a 30% chance to be burnt. And being burnt is never good in One Piece and Pokemon, because you have less attack damage and are getting damage over time. So yes, that's quite useful, and Flame Body makes a lot of sense for Ace. His second ability would be Flash Fire. So Flash Fire, I don't agree entirely with that, because I don't think that's how his abilities works. Flash Fire, or Received Fire if you want to read the Japanese name, works in the way that if you are hit by a fire type move, the Pokemon, in this case Ace, absorbs the flames and uses it to power up his own fire type moves. I don't think that's how the Devil Fruit actually works. Ace can control and generate flames, I think, so maybe you could argue that if somebody uses flame attacks on him, he can just use these flame attacks to boost up his attacks. But I have never seen anything like that, and I'm not sure if Ace can control the flames of other people. I don't know if we have ever seen anything like that. If we have seen Ace control the fire of other people, you can let me know in the comments. But I prefer the idea of Flame Body over Flash Fire. His first attack that has to be here is called Fire Punch. Fire Punch is an attack where the target is punched with a fiery fist. This attack can also leave a target with a burn. So Ace is going to burn a lot of enemies, and he's going to make sure that none of his opponents are going to get out of these battles unscathed. But Fire Punch, well, it has to be here. He's Fire Fist Ace. His most signature attack is basically Fire Fist. So yes, Hiken is here. Fire Punch is the main attack of Ace. He might even have a powered up version of the attack, because Fire Punch is just a 75 base power move. Obviously you have this stab from him being a fire type and these things, but Ace maybe should have something where his Fire Punch gets even more upgraded, because his Hiken should be at least 100 base power, or maybe even 120. You could say that his PP gets reduced to like 10 or 5 because of that, but his Hiken has to be stronger than 75. Then we get to the next attack. That's called Searing Shot. Searing Shot is a move where the user torches everything around it in an inferno of scarlet flames. This may also leave the target with burns. So obviously, it's another big attack for Ace. It's a special attack, and I kind of see Ace more like a physical attacker, and most of these attacks for Ace that Kyle chose are actually special attacks. In my opinion, Ace is more of a physical attacker, but you could argue that because he's mainly relying on his Devil Fruit or not physical attacks, he's actually special, because Fire Punch, like his Hiken, is not actually a physical attack. It's just the flames being produced from his fist punch. But it's not really him punching something, it's just the flames getting shot out. So maybe it's actually all special because he doesn't do all that much physical anymore. Overheat would be our third attack of Ace. To describe this move, the user attacks the target at full power. The recoil from this move lowers the user's offensive stats. It's a last resort move, and it's actually quite powerful with 130 base power and only 90% accuracy. So Ace should really only use this as a last resort, or if he has to one-shot some sort of powerful opponent. As I said, it's a special move, and with Fire Stab, stab means same type attack bonus. Because Ace is a fire type and this attack is based on a fire attack, it gets boosted again. So the 130 gets basically increased to a 195 power attack. So this is really powerful, and depending on what sort of item you equip Ace with, maybe some sort of life orb or something like that, which further increases the damage attacks can do, Ace is going to be a massive glass cannon actually. And last but not least, for a bit of coverage, I'm not sure if that was Kyle's idea, but because it also very much fits into Ace because we have seen him do it, it's Surf. Surf is a water type attack, so for a fire Pokemon it's quite uncommon to have them, I think, unless they're Volcanion, which is one of the few, or actually the only fire water Pokemon. But Surf is a HM, or now just an attack, because HMs are not really there anymore, where the user attacks everything around it by swamping its surroundings with the giant wave. And Ace, well, he's not swamping everything with a giant wave, but he can surf. We have seen him surf on his boat, it's basically his main mode of travel, so I think it's quite fitting for him to have that, and he's going to surf around with his boat to create some sort of waves to plunge on his enemies, to maybe drown something like a Devil Fruit user, or just use water to attack other people. He can also just make sure that he's not going to burn down everything himself, because Ace, he's quite hot-headed. But let's get to our second character. That's Kid. Kid is a main steel type, so we could also argue steel fighting or steel ground or something like that. But steel has to be there, it's a stellar fruit, and it makes a lot of sense. Now let's get to his abilities. His first ability is called Magnet Pull. Magnet Pull is an ability which prevents other steel types from fleeing from the battle, because there's a lot of magnetism going on. So makes a lot of sense, because Kid has the Magnet fruit, he's going to pull all of the steel types in. He's going to be the nightmare for steel types. That's also why I think he should have something to be strong against steel types. Not only is he one himself, but he should also be the nightmare of all of them. So maybe some ground attacks or fighting attacks would make a lot of sense. But his second ability would be Battle Armor. Battle Armor is something where you have a hard armor on your body that protects you from critical hits. You could argue how it makes sense, but he has a lot of armor around him if he uses his magnet abilities to just make himself gigantic or something with. He's actually producing a battle armor with something like trash or garbage floating around. Just some random scraps he finds on the battlefield. He's going to produce the best armor ever to maybe take less damage. You could even argue that he could use Mimikyu's disguise ability, and we just rename it something like Scrap Armor, because he has the disguise ability from Mimikyu where if he gets hit, the disguise tanks the first damage or it reduces the damage by a lot, and he's just going to be fine and not get hurt. Now let's get to his attacks. First we have Magnet Rise. Magnet Rise is a very simple move. It's not actually an attack, it's more like a setup thing to keep Kid safe as well. When he uses this move, the user levitates using electrically generated magnetism for 5 turns. Because he's a steel type, he's obviously weak against ground attacks. So if he's floating, he doesn't take any damage from that. So he negates one of his weaknesses and is only left with fighting and fire weaknesses. That's quite useful, but setting it up could be quite annoying because you will have to use an entire turn to use it. But let's get to the second attack. It's called Metal Claw. I decided to give him some stronger metal attacks after this one, because Metal Claw is actually quite basic and weak. It's only 50 power, but it has the added ability to increase your attack. You basically have steel claws where you're just going to slice at the enemy. It makes sense for him because he can control these metal parts, but it's just not strong enough to be fitting for a Kid in my opinion. That's why I gave him both the signature moves of Samazenta and Sashia. They're called Behemoth Bash and Behemoth Slash. They're basically the same attack. The only difference is that one of them uses a gigantic shield to slam it into a target, and the other turns the user into a gigantic sword to slash into the target. And they both deal double damage against targets that are Dynamax. So the Dynamax thing doesn't matter anymore if we're outside of Sword and Shield, but in general, they're still strong attacks with 100 base power, and they're physical because Kid has to be a physical fighter, right? Now let's get to the next move called Metal Burst. Metal Burst works well if Kid is a sort of fighter that is very defensive, so maybe he should have some sort of defensive ability like the one with Mimikyu. Metal Burst works like this. The user retaliates with much greater force against the opponent that last inflicted damage on it. It's a counter type of attack where the enemy has to attack Kid first, and then he's going to increase the damage by 1.5 times. And that's going to be massive. Especially if Kid has a higher HP stat and a high defense stat, he's just going to burst out out these enemies and defeat them in one shot. It's more like a stamped punk or something. He could have steel beam as well, but he's going to be very powerful. He's tanky and he can dish out more damage. That's just how Kid works. And last but not least, we have the heavy slam attack. The user slams into the target with its heavy body. The more the user outweighs the target, the greater the move's power. So this could work well if Kid is actually not just in his human form, but if he is on the battlefield in a gigantic mecha suit, because he uses scraps to turn it into a mecha or something. And he weighs, I don't know, 1000 kilograms or so, or even more. I don't even know how heavy Kaido, for example, is, but Kid should weigh a lot if he's in a scrap suit. So this is very dependent on how much he weighs and how much the enemy weighs, but it's still fitting. Heavy Slim just works because all of these attacks from Kid are kind of heavy metal based. He has like these punk attacks, punk rock, heavy metal. All of these things make a lot of sense for him. So I like these things for Kid, and I think they make a lot of sense. That's a good character. Now let's get to our third character of the day, Boa Hancock. She's our first double type of the day. She's fairy fighting. So if she's not pure fairy, everybody beforehand should also not be pure fire or pure steel. They should all be fairy fighting, steel fighting, or fire fighting. It just makes more sense in my opinion. But let's get to the abilities. She's very attractive. And the Japanese name for cute charm is actually Mad Love Body, which makes a lot of sense for Boa because she's just the most beautiful woman in the entire One Piece world apparently. Cute charm or Mad Love Body work in a way if an enemy makes contact with Boa, they may be infatuated by her. So they might fall in love and be turned into stone, but turning into stone is not part of the Pokemon thing, it's in One Piece. So she might just make them fall in love, and being in love is a thing in Pokemon where the opponent might not make a move because they are so in love with Boa. It's very fitting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And I actually think I prefer this one over the next ability that you have already seen. It's Intimidate. Obviously Boa is quite intimidating, but you would have to rework Intimidate to make it so that the enemies get weaker because they're not intimidated. I mean, they could be intimidated by something like her beauty, her prettiness, but I feel Cute Charm works more. Now let's get to her attacks. First we have Attract. Makes a lot of sense. Attract is a move where if the target is of the opposite gender to the user, it becomes infatuated with the user and will sometimes be unable to use its move. In case of Boa, I would argue that it shouldn't be gender specific. In case of the entire thing in Pokemon, I think they should adjust it so it's not gender specific anymore. It kind of would buff Attract, but I'm also wondering why they have kept it like that. It kind of doesn't make sense. You can be attracted to any gender, and even if you have no gender, you can still be attracted to female or male Pokemon, right? So yes, Attract makes a lot of sense that it's in Boa's loadout. But Draining Kiss is something I was more confused. Boa doesn't kiss people, she would never. The user steals the target's HP with a kiss. The user's HP is restored by over half of the damage taken by the target. So yes, it's a fairy type move that works well with her, but I don't think she would have some sort of move like that. Boa knows that she's pretty, but she's not just going to seduce the people. She's just going to be there and people are going to fall in love with her even if she's not going to do anything. You could argue that Draining Kiss is something like Love Arrow or something, but I don't see the major connections, so I would skip over that and use a different attack that I'm going to talk about a bit later. Next we have an attack called Low Sweep, because Boa is a kicking monster, and the user makes a swift attack on the target's legs, which lowers the target's speed. So Boa, obviously she's a fighting type, so she needs to have some sort of fighting attacks as well. Low Sweep makes a lot of sense. She could also have Low Kick, which is a move that gets stronger the more heavy the opponent is. So she would be a perfect counter for Kid, even though Kid would probably just instantly fall in love and turn to stone anyways. Now let's get to the fourth move. That would be something called Triple Arrows. Here we have the thing with the love arrows, and Boa also being a part of the Amazon Lily tribe where a lot of people use bows. Triple Arrows is an attack where the user kicks and then fires 3 arrows. This move is a heightened chance to land a critical hit and may also lower the target's defense stat or make it flinch. A lot of things in it. It's just busted. There are so many things going on in Triple Arrow. It makes a lot of sense for Boa to have it. I love the idea of Triple Arrow. It's super strong, and I would say, Boa, that's your signature attack. Triple Arrow, just rename it to Triple Love Arrow or something, and it's perfect for Boa. Now let's get to the point where I say I want to remove Draining Kiss and actually let Boa learn an attack called Tropical Kick, or in English it's just Drop Kick. Drop Kick makes a lot of sense. It's a grass move which also would give Boa a bit more coverage, which would be nice, and it's also powerful enough that it can lower the attack's stats. And now to read the summary, the user lands an intense kick of tropical origins on the target. So yes, tropical origin. You cannot argue with me that something like Amazon Lily is not a tropical island. It would make a lot of sense for Boa to have this attack, and I would love to see it on a move pool. But let's get to our next Pokemon for now, or our next One Piece character. It's Yamato Hybrid 4. In this case, Kyle only gave her one ability, its Power Construct. This is in accordance to what he gave Yamato in her normal form, because the idea was that if Yamato grows a bit weaker, loses some health, then she turns into her hybrid form, which changes her typing and also gives her new attacks to make her change the battlefield and be more powerful and just power up to fight against these opponents. But I also gave her the second ability called Ice Scales, fitting for her Ice Devil Fruit with the Ice Doggy or whatever it was. Ice Scales is an ability where the Pokemon, or in this case Yamato, is protected by Ice Scales, which halve the damage taken from special moves. Yamato would be a massive tank with that, and I kind of want to argue that Yamato really is a tank. She can tank a lot of damage, and her being an Ice Fairy type is also really fitting because it's strong against Kaido. Kaido would be a Dragon type, so yes, she's strong against him. She wants to take down Kaido, so she is the counter to Kaido in any imaginable way. So all of her attacks also work quite well on that. I personally think that Yamato is more of a mixed attacker, but I would play her physically. But she also has a lot of special attacks that she could use. So let's take a look. First we have Ice Beam. The target is struck with an icy cold beam of energy. This may also leave the target with Frostbite. Frostbite is a new Pokemon feature because Frozen got removed, and Frostbite I think is the opposite of Burning, because Burning reduces the physical attack of the opponent and Frostbite reduces the special attack of the opponent. So combining Ice Scales together with Frostbite means that Yamato basically takes no damage from special attacks at all. And Ice Beam is just a really cool attack in general. Then we have Ice Shard, a physical attack with priority. The user flash freezes chunks of ice and hurls them at the target. This move always goes first unless something else has more priority. So yes, it's cool to have priority moves, it's very important in battles actually, and Yamato should have physical attacks. Ice Shards make a lot of sense. She has an Ice Devil Fruit obviously, so she has the ability to create ice and is going to use it in attacks. Now we get to another attack called Freeze Shock. This is something I added to the mix because I thought she needs more physical, powerful ice attacks. Freeze Shock is the signature move of Kyurem, and it is a 2-turn attack, so it might not be something you want to use. The turn after using the move, the user hits the target with electrically charged ice to inflict damage. This may also leave the target with paralysis. Because Yamato is a mythical zone, I just thought she could do anything. She's not only able to use Frostbite, she's also able to use paralysis and then also other things technically. Mythical zones are just that crazy. Unless you use Yamato with a Power Herb, which is an item in Pokemon that allows you to skip over a preparation turn, Freeze Shock is actually not that great. Maybe you can use it in some sort of situations, but I think there are better examples for strong attacks as well. For example, Glacial Lance. Glacial Lance is one of the attacks used by Ice Rider Calyrex. This is a move where the user attacks by hurling a Blizzard Cloak Icicle Lance at the opposing Pokemon. Very fitting for Yamato. I just think all of these attacks where she creates something ice covered or blizzard cloaked, it makes a lot of sense for her. This Blizzard Lance is a really powerful attack with 120 base power already. We put Stab on top of that and we are at 180 base power. That's really incredible. I just think Yamato is going to be a monster in an attack department. She might be a mixed attacker. I would actually think that Yamato has a higher defense and attack stat compared to special attack stat and special defense stat, but because of Ice Scales, her special defense would rise like double again, and it would be quite useful to have her in a lot of different scenarios. She would be very useful in all kinds of battles. Then we get to Ice Fang. Obviously she has a Wolf Devil Fruit, so Ice Fang makes a lot of sense, and it can also leave the target with Frostbite. I thought it could also flinch, but they might have removed that. So it's just my idea that Frost Fang or Ice Fang makes a lot of sense. And my other idea was Ice Hammer or something called Ice Punch. Both of these make a lot of sense because Yamato is inspired by Ace, and the hammer works with her using a club, but Ice Punch would be a very nice homage to Ace being Fire Punch and she being Ice Punch. So she would have seen the Hiken, the Fire Fist from Ace, and would have adjusted herself for the Kuriken. Kuri is ice in Japanese, so maybe she would have attack like that against Kaido. It would have been cool to see the moment where she uses some sort of ice punch similar to Ace, and Luffy sees that and it just reminds him that Yamato actually met Ace. I feel like we need some more callbacks to Ace to keep him relevant in the story. His death was still one of the greatest moments in One Piece, even though I personally never was really all that attached to him. The two last moves for Yamato are Play Rough, which is a fairy type attack, which works on her being a fairy type Pokemon. And obviously it's strong against dragons, so yes, that's our Kaido attack, besides all of the ice moves that are also strong against dragons. Yes, Yamato is just a Kaido monster. Last but not least, Kyle gave her Crunch, which is similar to what I gave her Ice Fang, but it's more in coverage because she then has a dark type attack that she can use against other opponents, and it also has the ability to lower the defense of the enemy. So I think that fits into her as well. You have a few different moves that you can use on Yamato. If you want to build her specially, you can, but if you want to build her physically, you can do as well. So maybe there's even some sort of idea for a support Yamato. So that's all for the people to decide if they ever make a One Piece Pokemon ROM hack. So let's get to the last character of today, the character you might have all been waiting for. He's called Edward Newgate, or Whitebeard. His two abilities would be Slow Start or Parental Bond, or a third ability I will reveal to you later. Slow Start is the ability I would not necessarily give Whitebeard. You could argue that because he's sick, he needs a bit longer to get going, but if he's Prime Whitebeard, he shouldn't have that. If he's Prime Whitebeard, I have something else for him. Slow Start, however, makes sense if we talk about Sick Beard. The other ability is called Parental Bond, or Family Affection in Japanese. It fits into his character of being the father of the Whitebeard pirates, but it wouldn't really fit into the mechanics if you look at how the ability actually works. Because in Parental Bonds, the parent and child attack one after the other, and Whitebeard doesn't necessarily always fight together with one of his kids, so it wouldn't fit into his fighting style. The idea of him having parental bond because he's the greatest father in the entire One Piece universe, yes, makes sense, but the ability doesn't fit. So I decided to give him huge power. Whitebeard would already have an incredibly high attack stat, but huge power just doubles that attack stat again. So let's say his attack would already be something like 150, which is very high in Pokemon regards, and then it just gets double again by huge power. This is technically the strongest attack you would ever see in the entirety of Pokemon or One Piece. Whitebeard is just that much of a menace, and I fully agree, Whitebeard should be that strong. If you have some sort of character that can give him more setup, he's just going to be a sweeper and he's going to destroy everybody, especially with these 4 attacks. First, we have Spatial Rend, which is the signature move of Palkia, the space Pokemon, the space legendary Pokemon. When using this attack, the user tears the target along with the space around it. This move has a heightened chance of landing a critical hit. Is there anything I need to say about this attack? Whitebeard has the most destructive Devil Fruit, and until we see Blackbeard do something bigger with it, I will say that Blackbeard will never be as proficient as Whitebeard. So yes, Spatial Rend, he's just going to tear apart the entire world and destroy everything inside it. The other attacks also make a lot of sense. Earthquake, well, he's going to make the entire world shake. We have seen it on Marineford, so yes, Earthquake is going to happen. Then we have Fissure. Fissure is a one-hit KO move that drops the target in a fissure, and the target faints instantly. One-hit KO, makes sense. It doesn't have the highest chance to hit, but it's still a strong attack, and with Whitebeard we would just mean, hey, it's Fissure, but it still hits all the time, just because it's Whitebeard. He just does that, he's just that much of a monster. And last but not least, we have Rage Fist. Rage Fist is a new move which is a signature move of both Primeape and his evolution Annihilape. The user converts its rage into energy to attack. The more time the user has been hit by attacks, the greater the move's power. You could argue that it's not called Rage Fist in the case of Whitebeard. I'm actually going to reuse the idea of Parental Bond and just call it Parent Fist or Protector's Fist, because instead of him being fueled by rage, he's being fueled by protective instincts when he sees his family get hurt. Every time he or his partner in a double or triple battle get hurt, the attack power of this move gets increased. And we know how many attacks Whitebeard can take. We have seen him standing after all of these damages in Marineford. He died standing. What a legend. And those are all of the attacks from the One Piece character Whitebeard, and all of the other characters that we've talked about today as well. I think that's more than enough for it. I hope you enjoyed looking at these One Piece characters turned into Pokemon. This is the last thing I have taken from Kyle, so if you watch this, Kyle, thank you for it, and we can still work on things together. I think there will be a lot of fun. Please tell me in the comments what's your favorite generation and what was your favorite Pokemon out of these One Piece characters. But for now, that's all from me for today. All that's left to be said is stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro, out. Bye!